Yo, it's Max from Vino Sangre, here again with another video. This is again on inks, but the last one was on inks in general. Told you a bit about the difference between water-based, discharge, which is water-based, and plastisol inks. But today we're going to touch a bit more on specialist inks. If you want to stand out from the crowd a little bit, there is some additives or specialist inks that are a lot different to your normal. So, for instance, we'll take you first over to fluorescence. Like we said on the last video, if you haven't watched that, if you want to go back and sort of reference it and see the difference between plastisol and water-based, do so before making your choice. But they both come out with the same brightness. But I mean, these come in, so these are plastisol versions of the fluorescence. You got your pink, there's a yellow, we got a green, orange. Quite a lot to choose from, but yes, so this also does come in a discharge version as well, but the discharge version, which is pretty cool, is blacklit as well. So when you went in your rave or whatever, and if they have blacklit, like ultraviolet lights, whatever they're called, that will show up with that as well. With your plastisols, if it's on a dark coloured shirt, you will still need a base. As I say, you'll go back to the other video to reference this properly. But you'd have to have an underbase for the plastisol to work properly, but on a light coloured shirt, you only need the one screen. But the discharge one will only work on sort of darker coloured shirts, so that'll only need one screen. So we've got a new system for our discharge on our colours. And it turns out that they do all of these eco additives, which are fluorescent, boom, boom, which come in a lot more of an array of colours. The only issue is they work with the water base, clear base, but they unfortunately won't work with the discharge base because the activator, for some reason the pigment doesn't bind. So we can only use that on light coloured shirts, but as you can see, compared to the discharge ones and the plastisol ones, you've got a lot more array of colours there. But so that's one we offer. So second, metallic inks. So you got metallic golds, there's metallic silvers. I say we do offer it in both plastisol and water-based, but I personally prefer the water-based this time actually. I'm quite a fan of plastisol because it's just nicer to work with, and you do get sometimes more of a high-end finish. With the metallics, using the plastisol one, if you're going for a high detailed print, it will be a bit harder because it's got like your flecks of metallic, I guess, I don't know exactly what it is, but it'll be flecks of something that's shiny as shit. But they won't go through a high mesh screen as well, whereas the water-based version, I don't know how they've done it, but it's literally just like your normal water bases like these, runs beautifully, so you can get that on a high mesh. And a lot of the time, even on black shirts, you only need one screen. Whereas again, the plastisol one, you would need a base or just to do two screens with plastisol, so the same two colours. So yeah, personally for me, this is one of my favourite kind of specialist inks. And it comes in the form of an additive instead. So like the fluorescent ones, a lot of them, you buy it in the ink that it is, but this is actually an additive. So there's kind of like a base, which is pigmentless, but it is only for plastisol. And you will need two screens, and it's not a downfall because I feel it works beautifully on totes. Especially on totes, it kind of picks up the texture, and it will pick up the texture of most garments, to be honest. So if you use your shirts like Gildan, for instance, that have got like your heavies, especially, have got a deep weave, that will show up in puff a lot of the time, but that can work well and to your favour for like kind of vintage puff prints. Say if you're doing nice tote bags that have got like, not Hessian, but that kind of rough texture, and that comes through, it looks, yeah, I think it looks sick. But yeah, so the good thing with puff as well, we can do it with absolutely any colour. So pretty much you'll make up your Pantone, like in the previous video, make it up Pantone, so you can pick any specific colour you wanted. We can mix that in plastisol, and then we use that additive. So you can change the percentage of the puff as well, so you could just have it puff, like raise a tiny bit, or you could go like, well, some of these are 50-50. And the only other thing with puff is that because of it obviously puffing up and expanding through the dryer, you can't go for too detailed prints, because if you're too detailed, you're on a higher mesh. Can't push it through, well then it can, but the thing is you've got to use two screens, both puff, same ink on each one. It won't be very opaque, and when it puffs together, if it's really detailed, it'll puff and literally the print will puff together and you'll lose all the detail. So nice blocky prints, especially on tote bags, that looks sick. Next one is, glow in the dark, which is ink in itself, and you can get like, it's gonna sound sad as but when you're kids, you remember like your glow in the dark stars and that on the top of your roof. So you get that kind of green glow, or the main one we have in stock, we can get both, but the main one we've got is more of a kind of an aqua blue finish. Yeah, so on a black shirt, you can lay down any color discharge you want and then lay over the glow in the dark on top. So obviously when you're walking around during the day, you see a nice, say, red print on a black shirt, but then at night, if you went in a club or whatever, or just walking around in the dark, it'd be a nice glow up print in that kind of greeny color. Again, they're fine for kind of any print really, because it's, it moves nice, it's water-based, it doesn't need to be a nice block print. There's reflective still, which is really cool to be honest. And we only have it in, it says 3R black, so you've obviously probably all heard of kind of 3M tape, and there's quite a big thing with like Palace and brands like that kind of doing whole tracksuits in this sort of stuff recently, but it's a wicked water-based ink. It says black, but say if you go on a white shirt, it's kind of, it's more of a very deep charcoal grey vibe. But this stuff's incredible. Again, that couldn't have happened any better, could it? Right, let's start that one again, shall we? Back to it. Where was I? And then I was going to say about how detailed your artwork is. It does kind of matter with that. I would not want to put it through, it's better putting it through a low mesh anyway, because it reflects way more. The more that goes through the screen, the more it reflects. And it does, because it's water-based, and it's this again, a bit like the water-based metallic, has like, this literally has beads of glass in it pretty much. And the higher mesh you use, it's harder to get that through the screen, starts drying in the screen, it causes us a lot of problems. So if you want something really high detailed, I probably wouldn't bother going for it, and it won't reflect as well either, so there won't be much point. Most t-shirts we print on would be 100% cotton, and that's what Discharge works on. But when you get your crossover blends and you've got like polycottons or whatever, a lot of them you'll get away with plastisol. They won't discharge. But then obviously you've got your even more hardcore kind of plastic-based garments like nylon and polyester. So for polyester, we have what we call like a low cure ink. No point in looking at an example of a print because it's exactly the same as any other white. You can get away with adding a bit of pigment from using some of these plastisol colours we got down there, but we wouldn't want to turn it too much because then that would defeat the object of it being a low cure ink for poly. Because of the plastic in the garments, it migrates really bad and the dye comes straight through the ink. So that's why they've created a low cure ink, so you can cure it at a lower temperature, because obviously the heat as well brings the dye through the ink. Weirdly enough, a lot of women's garments seem to be made with like a Teflon or viscose, which is a very plasticky based material, which is what that low cure stuff's used for. But yeah, I wouldn't advise going for anything too high detailed. But if you want nice bright whites on that kind of material still, we can do that. And then another one, so thinking more so of kind of windbreakers. Yeah, anything nylon based pretty much. Well, actually this stuff's incredible because you can print on, with adding this, you can print on hard plastics, you can print on glass, you can print on, yeah, most plastic based things to be honest. And all it is a little additive, so that also means you can have, it's only an additive for plastisol though, so you can have like any array of these Pantones, and then you would just add your certain percentage of this you need, and you could print onto windbreakers, yeah, and hard plastics, whatever really. So yeah, that's quite cool. Right, so yeah, that's pretty much everything we offer. Well, for now anyway, that's what we've got in stock. But yeah, that's kind of it, and we are open. There is other specialist inks that exist, and we have kind of experimented and played about with them a bit. So if you know a bit about specialist inks yourself and there's something you want in particular, for instance crackle or burnout or something like that, get in touch and we can chat about it and go from there. But otherwise, if you're still a bit unsure and you say you're quite interested in a puff and you weren't too sure if your design will work, just hit us up, send us your image and we'll be able to sort something out. So yeah, see you in the next video. Safe.